Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Leadership Circle webinar tonight. We are so excited to have you on the line with us and just want to say welcome. If this is your first Leadership Circle webinar, we are so excited to have you here. And if you have been attending our Leadership Circle webinars for a while now, we are just as excited to have you here tonight as well. So quickly to go over the agenda, we have some great presentations for you this evening. You'll get to hear from Mary Pat, our foundation chair, on some foundation highlights. We'll have an update on consultant training from Abby and Taylor. And then to round out the evening, you'll hear from Courtney Schmidt on an update regarding our Pearlstone partners. So just a few things before I turn it over to Mary Pat. If you have questions tonight, you can use your question box on the control panel to type those in. We will leave some time at the end of the webinar to run through questions. And I think with that, we should be good to go. So Mary Pat, I will turn it over to you to get us started.
Great. Thank you, Madeline, and welcome everyone to our first Leadership Circle webinar for the fiscal year 2019-2020. It's great to have all of you here, and again, I am here to just give you an update on what the foundation is doing. As far as I'm going to cover tonight, a little update on the Board of Trustees, as well as kind of give you some direction where you can find a year-end update on where we're at with the Vision 2020 strategic plan. Believe it or not, we are entering into our 5th year of this 5-year plan. And then I'm also going to go over the strategic priorities that the foundation has for this fiscal 2019-2020 year. So with that, Madeline will go ahead. As far as the Board of Trustees update, the first update is we've had some changes to our Board of Trustees, as we do normally at the end of each fiscal year. Trustee Sister Carmen Renee has ended her term of, or eligible terms, plural, of service with our board. Carmen was from the University of Denver Gamma Delta chapter, and we are so thankful for everything that she had brought to the table and has helped our board grow in the 9 years that she has been on our Board of Trustees. And then I also want to have a big welcome to Ann T. Cantor, who is joining our board this year. And Ann is from the Alpha Psi chapter at UCLA and currently is residing up in Oregon. So Ann brings lots of board experience, as well as some of the financial skills and knowledge that we felt we were losing with the departure of Carmen Renee. So we are very excited to have Ann joining our board. And as a little plug for the foundation, if you are interested in volunteering, we have a website link here that Madeline will include in the follow-up email that goes out with the recording. And you are more than welcome to click there on the Alpha Chi Omega website to find out what kind of volunteer opportunities are available for the foundation. So with that, Madeline, we can go to the next slide. As far as the Vision 2020 strategic plan, if you may remember, the plan for the last or current this year and the previous 4 years was centered around 4 themes: discover, grow, engage, and sustain. And as I said earlier, this is the last year of that current strategic plan. If you would like to review that plan in more detail, we post annually mid-year as well as a year-end update as to where we are relative to the objectives, strategies, and priorities. I apologize for the misspelling there. Again, the link that is provided is the Alpha Chi Omega website. In order to see the mid-year and year-end updates, you do need to be logged in as a member of the organization. But please feel free to review that. It is some very interesting and exciting achievements that we have managed in the last 4 years. So looking forward, we are, as a foundation, we continue to align our strategic priorities annually with the 4 themes of the strategic plan. And relative to the foundation this year under the Discover theme, we are going to focus to continue our partnership with our National Housing Corporation on chapter housing fundraising initiatives. That's a very exciting avenue that we are exploring to the benefit of some local chapters that the National Housing Corporation owns, as well as some of the just collaboration with the foundation and the National Housing Corporation. Under the Grow theme, we are continuing to work more cohesively with the fraternity to develop a marketing and communications plan so that all of our members are seeing consistent messaging throughout the communications, whether it's from the fraternity, whether it's from the National Housing Corporation, or from the foundation. And our charter, as you all know, and thank you for what you have done to date, is to continue to grow our donors to our Real Strong Women Fund, which is the main fund of unrestricted dollars to assist with the fraternity grant request. Additionally, we are very proud to be focusing on granting more dollars for the fraternity grant request. For those of you that may not be familiar, each year the fraternity writes a grant request to the foundation that as they look at their priorities for the coming year, they write a grant to us that is requesting dollars to cover what they believe are all of the educational and philanthropic opportunities within the fraternity programming that they will be doing for the upcoming year. We are so excited that the growth in the dollars that the foundation has been providing for that grant request has grown rapidly. Last year, we granted $1.2 million. And for this fiscal 2019-2020, we again granted another $1.2 million. So for those of you on this call, that is a huge thank you to all of you and the impact that you are making on our organization. As far as the Engage theme of the 2020 strategic plan, we are looking to expand our print communications. As you all probably received earlier at the beginning of this year, all donors now that have cumulative giving greater than $299 are now receiving the Liar magazine. We're so excited to have more sisters getting that Liar magazine again, and we'll be using that as one of a primary communications tool to share with our members the impact that their donations are making on the organization. So we are also looking to engage our young alumni donors, recognizing that we have had great numbers of young donors that were donating during their college years and moving on to alumni status, that we want to look at ways to engage them to continue their philanthropic giving to the Alpha Chi Omega Foundation. And we are also looking to engage more volunteers that will be working for the foundation in assisting us with stewardship of all of our donors. That is the tender loving care of all of you gracious donors in our organization. Hence why I pointed out where you can find volunteer opportunities at Alpha Chi Omega. And then lastly, the fourth theme is sustain. And we are evaluating our annual campaigns, those being the Founders Day Challenge, the Day of Giving, which this year was in the spring, and then prior to convention and at convention, the Star Booth giving. We're evaluating those to see what we can do to attract new donors and hopefully to also re-engage any lapsed donors in a capacity to get them more excited about what we're doing. We will be also looking at ways that we can improve our TLC with all of you donors and how to make that more personal and meaningful, and how we show you appreciation for your gifts. And then we are also looking at how we can sustain our volunteers that are working with our organization in terms of providing a fun as well as an impactful work environment so that their volunteer experience is very positive with Alpha Chi Omega Foundation. And Madeline, I believe that is the conclusion of my portion of the presentation, so I will turn that back to you, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may all have at the end of the combined presentations.
Great, thanks so much, Mary Pat. And like she said, if you do have specific questions, you can type those in. We will kind of watch those as they come in, and as she mentioned, leave some time at the end of the webinar, so feel free to type those in while they are at top of mind. And we'll move forward to talking a little bit about consultant training. So I'm excited to have with us tonight Abby Ford and Taylor Moody. They both work in the Collegiate Experience Department at headquarters and are really going to share a little bit about the consultant training program and really everything that entails. So Taylor and Abby, I will turn it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Madeline. So like she said, my name is Abby Ford, and I am the Associate Director of Collegiate Experience. I joined Alpha Chi Omega staff in July, and I get the pleasure of supervising all of the traveling consultants. Taylor and I are super excited to talk to you all about consultant training and the impact that it not only has on the consultants, but also the ripple effects and the impact that they're having on all of the chapters that the consultants get to work with and travel to throughout the year. So I went to Florida State University, and I'm a member of Kappa Kappa Gamma. And recently I worked for Fired Up before coming to Alpha Chi Omega, and I'm really excited to be on staff, and I will let Taylor introduce herself as well.
Yes, so my name is Taylor Moody. Like she said, I serve as the Associate Director of New Chapter Development for Alpha Chi Omega. So in my role, I work with our new chapters, of course, but with that and how I come into the consultant program is that I supervise and oversee the resident consultants that work with our new chapters, as well as work with Abby on consultant training for the resident consultant side. I served as a consultant for 1.5 years and worked with new chapters through that part of my career with Alpha Chi Omega, and then came on staff right after that. And this is going into my 3rd year in this role with Alpha Chi Omega, working with our consultants and our new chapters. So very excited to chat with you all tonight about consultant training. So I want to just introduce another consultant supervisor that is not able to be with us tonight. She is actually on a flight because she was with our Beta Lambda sisters these past 2 weeks for their recruitment. So she is on her way back to Indianapolis now as we speak, but that is Taylor Tolley. Taylor serves as the Assistant Director of Chapter Development, and in her role, she oversees the advancement program. She supervises consultants along with Abby and I, and helps us out with that consultant training program and everything that entails. So that is the 3 of us. We are the ones that are supervising the consultants, working through that training program, the hiring process, and anything that has to do with the consultants. So first, I just want to start and give just a quick overview of the consultant hiring process to help you better paint a picture of this process that these women go through in order to become chapter consultants. So our hiring process is pretty robust, and it truly helps us narrow down the impressive candidate pool that comes to us through our membership, and truly helps us get the best women for the job. We work really hard to find the members who will best represent our chapters across the country and who will do, the best work for us over the course of the year or 2 years or however long they serve as a chapter consultant. Candidates will go through an application process. They will go through a phone screen, and those who are invited to be in the in-person process will come to hiring weekend. That takes place over 3 days in Indianapolis and consists of multiple parts of an interview. So we have individual interviews, group interviews, presentation practice, situational practice of things that they would come to on the job. We have writing prompts and practice, and lots of interaction with staff and other candidates. It's really well-rounded in that way that we can really see everything about these women and how they interact with each other, and really truly try to get an idea of how they will interact on the road and work with our chapters. Once hiring weekend is over, our staff works to make sure that we hire the best consultants for the positions, and then we place them after that. So after we have hired the best people for the job, we place them in different resident locations, with different chapters, different types of chapters across the country. So Madeline, if you don't mind going back to that hiring slide, I just want to point out these dates for everyone. So a plug for our consultant hiring. So we know that many of you likely know collegians, or if you do run into any collegians that you think would be a great fit, or are asking questions about the consultant hiring process or the application, I wanted to let you all know that applications will be live in early September. And then after that, applications are due on December 1st. So please encourage members to apply. Our phone interview, so talked about that phone screen, that will take place in January. And then that in-person hiring weekend is going to be the weekend of February 28th onto March 1st. So wanted to point out those dates for you all, because if you know of anyone or want to pass this information along, we would love for you to do so.
And then once we have our consultant team, they will spend up to 6 weeks training in the summer to prepare for that consultant position. The amount of time that the consultants spend in Indianapolis, it can vary from year to year. And if it's a convention year, they spend less time in Indy due to convention being in the summer. And if it's an off year, they typically spend the full 6 weeks in the office training. During that training, consultants are trained by various members of the staff, outside facilitators, and they also attend a conference with consultants from other fraternities and sororities, and they participate in hands-on training with facilitators both in person and remotely. The conference that they attended this year, they all have raved about how they learned a lot of different things that they've been able to bring on the road with them, which has been really helpful. And it also allows them to build relationships with other consultant teams from other organizations and kind of have those connections when they're on the road, which is always really fun to hear about. At the conclusion of their training, the consultants participate in a simulation called Taking Your Skills on the Road, where the staff will create situations for the consultants to participate in to mimic what life on the road will be like. So these are real life situations that consultants encounter every day, so that they are able to go through a trial and error while they're still at headquarters with a team of people wanting to help them through those things and kind of help guide them of where they can utilize those skills that they've learned, so that they're able to know what they're getting, like those different kinds of situations that they're going to be handling when they're on the road. Something that's is super beneficial for our consultants, and we feel that this really helps get them ready for their first visits. And this summer, a few weeks ago, just doing that, it was really helpful because they were able to kind of talk through with each other and talk about and also realize that they were more prepared than they thought they were. So it was a really cool way to see them give themselves more credit if they know what they're doing and they have the skills to be prepared to handle the various situations that they encounter while being on the road.
So, of course, during training with our consultants, we had a lot of job-specific, consultant-specific training that will prepare consultants for their time on the road. So we have consultants who come in with different levels of knowledge about Alpha Chi Omega, different leadership experiences, different backgrounds in what they were involved in on their campus and in their chapter. So we work really hard with, of course, all of us, but then the rest of staff that help train the consultants to make sure that we cover the full range of knowledge areas for our consultants. So really making sure that there are really no assumptions coming in that every consultant that we hire knows X, Y, and Z, or every consultant has been on exec, because that is just not true. We have consultants that have served on exec for multiple years. We have consultants that have never been on exec, but they held other roles within Alpha Chi Omega and also had some impressive roles on campus and were a leader in their campus community as well. So it really ranges what our consultants come in knowing. So we want to make sure that we really get everybody up to where they need to be, no matter where they started. So a lot of job-specific, Alpha Chi specific training. You'll see on the list here, these are a few things that we hit, and we are really intentional about making sure that we relate as much as we can back to their next career or careers in general, right? So we know that a lot of things like the specific policy of Alpha Chi Omega or recruitment practices, officer meetings, specific things may not really translate into their next career and job, but the underlying pieces of the job that they are learning. So having hosting a meeting, consulting, giving feedback, all of those things, we know that that is what is going to translate into their next career or to their future. And Abby will talk about the professional development side of training on the next slide, but wanted to point out that we're very intentional about making the connection for them and making sure that they're not only learning how to be a consultant, but also how to be a young professional along the way. So for these job-specific trainings, we have our staff members train on the different topics that relate to their area. So our consultants are learning from the experts directly. So they're learning finance from our finance team. They're learning policy from our experts in those areas. So that way they're getting all that information, are able to ask questions in real time. Each facilitator creates an interactive training experience, and we work to take feedback from consultants directly throughout the summer to really make sure that we know what they want and need from us and the facilitators in order to learn and retain the information that they are being given. Our goal is to make sure, of course, that the consultants feel ready to go once they leave training at the end of the summer, and we want to work to make sure that we listen and adapt as we go if needed. So know that it is a very well-oiled machine, this training process that we have, and we really work hard on the front end to prepare and make sure that we have everything in place for the consultants. But we know that each year our consultants are a little bit different than they were the year before, right? It's a different group of people. So really work to do whatever we can to make sure every year the group of consultants is getting what they need to be successful. And as we mentioned earlier, Abby just talked about the summer concluding with taking your skills on the road. So we spend time together even after those sessions, debriefing and reviewing that information. And then we spend some time at the end, the very, very tail end of the summer after that, revisiting and reviewing those topics that consultants identified that they needed more training on. So really working to really take every opportunity we can to make sure the consultants have that hands-on time to try parts of the position, to have a simulation of an officer meeting or an FSA meeting or a recruitment round, all of those things that they're going to jump right into when they get on the road. We want to make sure that they feel good about that, and we're able to give that feedback and have them really feeling ready to go once they leave us at the end of those 6 weeks.
We also know that the consultant position offers a lot of professional development opportunities and personal growth for our consultant team, and we work to be intentional about the time we have with them for training to ensure that we are helping them reach as much professional development potential as they can. We offer professional development opportunities each time the consultant team returns to headquarters for training in the summer, October, December, and in April. We know that the consultants are starting the job hunt at different times in the year and work to tailor our efforts to best match where they are. This past summer, we brought in Erin Fisher to facilitate 2 separate afternoons with the consultants to talk about commanding the room and to do follow-up training with the consultants based on what they requested during their first training with Erin. In the past, we have had other facilitators such as Lindsay Picardo and have had group trainings with Erin Fisher and other fraternity and sorority consultants. In addition, FEA is the conference with all of the fraternity and sorority consultant teams, and it offers a field staff training that consultants attend to not only cover topics that consultants face, but offers networking opportunities to consultants from each organization. And when we think about professional development, a lot of them, we really try and gain their input as well of some things that they feel that they want and need to help not only themselves but their entire team in figuring out what they need to have more exposure to get to that next level in their professional development.
And we know that the consultant position really is a one-of-a-kind position that we know, not every Alpha Chi Omega gets to experience, but we know that it is super beneficial to those who do apply and do the job and spend that year or 2 years traveling or being a resident and building those relationships across the country with those Alpha Chi Omega chapters. We always hear from our consultants at the end of the year how, they have such close relationships with not only the consultant team that they have, worked with and learned with and grown with over the year or 2 years, but also those women that they meet across the country. I always hear that they've experienced big Alpha Chi for the first time. They understand now that true connection and bond that all Alpha Chi Omegas do have across the country that they haven't necessarily felt or seen in their own chapter, but now that they have, worked across the country and been across the nation and met all of these people and made these connections and networked and grown professionally and done all of those things, they are, really connected to Alpha Chi Omega, and they have seen that they can make a difference, and they have, seen the impact that Alpha Chi Omega has on these women and in turn on themselves. So we know that, and we have seen through this that our consultants have that big connection to Alpha Chi Omega, and really, we work to cultivate them as future volunteers through this process. So we make sure, Abby mentioned the different touch points we have with them at headquarters, and one of them is in April as they are finishing out their consultant position. We have time with them to wrap things up and send them on their way, but in that time we spend some intentional time about volunteer opportunities and what that can look like for them. So really digging into what they want to do after their consultant position, right? So where are they going to be in the country? What job are they going to do? All of those things that they're trying to figure out. They're all in different places. Some are like, yes, I'm ready. I want to volunteer right now. Give me a chapter. I want to be a specialist, whatever that looks like. But we also know that a lot of consultants are like, okay, I just need a little bit of a break from helping chapters and working with chapters. I need to, get settled in my career and so on and so forth. But what we found is they typically come back sooner or later, right? A lot of our volunteers that come from the consultant class really enjoy it, and whether they started in the beginning or they started a few years later or whatever that looks like, that love for Alpha Chi and that those relationships they've cultivated and that love for making that impact is still there, and that is something that's really important about the consultant program as well, and a really awesome byproduct of the program, especially for us, because then we have great volunteers that come out of that. So something that we're really proud of and really want to continue doing, and hopefully can keep cultivating volunteers, because ultimately that will help us out in the long term. So that is a little bit about those relationships and those volunteer opportunities that come from being a consultant.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Abby and Taylor, for sharing. It's always fun to see those pictures and hear just a little bit about what goes on for our consultants. So next up, we have Courtney Schmidt, and she is our managing partner of Pearlstone Partners. So she's going to talk a little bit about Pearlstone Partners, what it is, kind of how it came to be, and hopefully paint that picture just a little more clearly for you guys. So Courtney, I will turn it over to you to get started.
All right, thanks, Madeline. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I appreciate the Foundation team for inviting me to be a part of this webinar this evening. As Madeline said, I am Courtney Schmidt, and I am an initiate of the Alpha chapter at DePaul University. And my partner in crime is Amanda Farr, and she is Pearlstone Partners Engagement Manager. She is an initiate of our Alpha New chapter at University of Missouri. She was unable to join this evening as she was taking some time off with her family. So we are kind of the two halves of Pearlstone Partners, and that may lead some of you to ask, well, what is Pearlstone Partners? Hopefully it is a group or an entity that you all have heard something about over the last year, as we have recently celebrated our first birthday. And kind of the long and short of it is that we are an organization started by Alpha Chi Omega for Alpha Chi Omega with the intention of serving as a staffing agency. So baseline, we are helping to employ people. And so despite the fact that we are an LLC or a limited liability corporation, Pearlstone Partners does operate like a nonprofit. And that is because Alpha Chi Omega Fraternity is the LLC's full member. So we mirror that operationally. So more importantly, why is Pearlstone Partners? Well, at the very baseline, it was a business necessity. And it was also a massive organizational undertaking. And this is kind of that moment where I want to kind of call out and thank the 15-member project team that came together more than a year ago as we were first trying to figure out how do we move employment forward at the chapter level for Alpha Chi Omega. And that group of coworkers and volunteers really gave a huge time commitment and really relied on each other's areas of expertise within the organization. And in addition to that, we also engaged with legal support and some HR professionals here in Indianapolis to help make sure that we got this right. So how did employment rather happen before? Knowing that Pearlstone Partners is an employment component, is a staffing agency, what was happening previous to Pearlstone Partners? Really, employment happened within the four walls of each chapter facility. And I like to affectionately refer to that time as the Wild Wild West. And so each chapter had the opportunity to make decisions about hiring, about compensation, about bonuses, performance management, even things like termination. And some of our chapters had advisors or had support systems that were involved in human resources or legal, perhaps even in accounting. And so they were able to do things relatively well and had the right folks at the table. Unfortunately, not all the rest of our chapters were in that boat, and there were some fairly scary kind of compliance and risk issues going on out there, to the point where there were some pretty serious legal claims made against local chapters and against some of the individuals at those local chapters. And so that's where we decided it was time to make a change. And primarily, yeah, it was because we live in this litigious society and we're really looking at how do we better protect our organization and the individuals who are members, who are volunteers, you know, working at these chapters on behalf of the organization. How do we better protect them? And so we saw the opportunity to do things better. We knew that we had a lot of different options as we were exploring ways to do employment differently and hopefully better. Different fraternal and sorority organizations out there, those who have taken the time to kind of examine this component of their organizations, have done similar options. Other organizations have done or made very different choices about how they work with employment. But we needed to make the right choice for Alpha Chi Omega. And so based upon our organization's fundamental organizational structure, forming a separate company, a separate LLC, was the best solution for us to address employment. So through Pearlstone Partners, we strive to, quote unquote, do employment better. By managing risk and keeping an eye on compliance, we strive to improve the employment and therefore the member experience. And that would be true, we hope, whether for an employee who happens to be on the payroll, for an advisor who may have been managing this herself before without a whole lot of support, or for the members who ultimately probably won't have much day-to-day interaction with us, if any, but who are hopefully benefiting from really qualified and excellent employees in their facilities. So as I kind of started, our goal was to move from that wild, wild west to what was sort of a scary situation to a really wonderful and nicely herded cat situation. That's sort of our goal. While I can't say that we're fully at that spot where the cats are nicely herded, as you see in that picture below, I do think we've made some tremendous progress with employees and with our chapters. And I do want to take a moment to mention that, you know, when I say chapters were doing things poorly or that there was risk out there before, that is certainly not to be judgmental or to place any blame on anyone who may have been involved in employment before. It is simply to say that employment is difficult, employment is multifaceted, and we had a lot of folks out there who were doing the best they could. Unfortunately, it just had not been an organizational focus for a moment. And so without the support and resources being provided, it just showed. Pearlstone Partners stakeholders range from those advisors and volunteers that I've mentioned, to our collegiate chapters, to the employees, to our internal partners. We work most closely with the collegiate experience and the housing departments. But that being said, we have involved much of the other headquarters staff, especially in the last year, as we have gotten off the ground and gotten going and done things like, you know, needing letterhead and things like that. So these are our primary stakeholders, but we certainly work with many other folks, and we are always receptive to feedback. I think being only 1 year into this adventure, we see that there's ample opportunity for growth and development, and knowing that, you know, when you're a startup, you can't say you've quote unquote always done it that way. So certainly any of you who may have been involved with Pearlstone Partners or involved with employment before, we do encourage feedback always. So Pearlstone Partners was formally established on May 8th, 2018. But prior to that, the Alpha Chi Omega National Council voted the entity into existence January of that same time frame. And we, as I mentioned previously, are incorporated in the state of Indiana. And we have partnered with a group named Synergy, and that was finalized mid-July 2018. Synergy is a PEO, or a professional employer organization, that is headquartered in Chicago, and they help to support compliance, both federally as well as from state to state. They help give that double extra check on payroll, and they also allow us to offer employees benefits. And that's something I'm particularly proud of. A lot of our chapters prior to Pearlstone Partners had sort of been asking, you know, how would we offer benefits if we wanted to? What pathway do we have? And there hadn't been a whole lot of options, or not a lot of affordable options. And so now with Pearlstone Partners and our partnership with Synergy, we're able to offer that to eligible employees. So Pearlstone Partners has a board of managers. The women listed here are the brave souls who agreed to serve in this capacity without even, you know, us fully knowing what this commitment was going to look like. Certainly we had some vision and some hopes, but we weren't certain what every step would look like along the way. So the board of managers is a necessity from a legal and governance perspective. It's a way to have good corporate governance as an LLC. This group was appointed by the Fraternity National Council. And so we, at that point in time, the National Council was really looking at folks who had experience with Alpha Chi Omega, perhaps experience with either the National Housing Corporation or a local housing corporation, folks who had board service experience, and perhaps even human resources or startup business experience. And mirroring the formation of the NHC a number of years ago, Angela, as national president, is currently serving on the board of managers. Pearlstone Partners also has a group of volunteer specialists. We call them the human resources specialists. They were recruited in spring, summer 2018. So again, before we fully knew what their role exactly might look like and how everything would come to be. And we have 13 members, many of whom carried over from their first year. And they mirror many of the other volunteer specialist teams. They specifically support Pearlstone Partners by acting as a bridge between us and the chapters who have employees working on site. So they assist with employment documents, and specifically then they are looking to keep job descriptions and employment agreements updated and on file for each chapter and each employee with those documents. A couple of fast facts, just to kind of give you an idea of how this all looks. Alpha Chi Omega has folks deployed to collegiate chapter work sites. That's kind of how we refer to them. And it doesn't matter whether it's an NHC property or an LHC property, those individuals are still Pearlstone Partners employees. And we onboarded and processed about 497 employees this past year. Some of them were folks who had carried over from previous payroll providers, who may not have ever even been active this year, but we didn't have good enough data yet to know that. So nearly 500 of them came over, and that required some level of paperwork to be processed along the way. So big administrative undertaking there. Moving forward then, you can see just kind of a quick breakdown as to how that nearly 500 people shook out. The biggest population being our servers, and I would say the most recognizable being those hush directors and those cooks, those folks who are typically on employment agreements, on contracts, and who many of us experienced in our own housed chapter experiences, if that was our experience. We processed just about 4 million in payroll this year. This exact number was prior to the final payroll run of the year, so would have been even just a little bit higher than this number you see on the screen. And to give a little bit more perspective, there are 64 chapters who have employees who would have been paying over the course of the last fiscal year. So certainly a large number, but also if you start to think about how many people were on payroll, you can see that it is a lot of those hourly servers and folks who are working on site and doing a lot of the work of our organization. We are very proud to be offering recruiting support to chapters in year 2. And I will mention that we're excited to say these numbers are even a bit more updated from what you see on your screen. So 22 hush director positions have been filled this summer and moving into this fall school year. And we have 2 currently open hush director positions. So while I tend to know and appreciate all of the tangible benefits of the compliance that Pearlstone Partners has brought to our chapters and to our advisors, I know that compliance isn't necessarily sexy, but advisors on the other hand have been very appreciative and have expressed a lot of gratitude for that recruiting support because they're not having to come home at the end of a long day and do that spend that time in addition to everything else doing that recruiting and that hiring support. So Pearlstone Partners, as I mentioned, is very proud to be offering that, and I'm hopeful that we will see good benefit as well with some even more qualified folks working at our chapter locations than before. Pearlstone Partners can be reached via email or phone, just through that information up for everyone to see here. And then looking ahead into year 2, I'll just quickly touch on some of our anticipated trends and priorities. Certainly we'll keep our eyes on compliance. That is one of our biggest goals throughout since the very beginning. And so that's partially work we do with our PEO partner, but also work we do by kind of keeping our ear to the ground and keeping track of state and federal developments. Despite being an employer, we are still supporting that enterprise best practice of encouraging our chapters to move to food and housekeeping services. So certainly that will eventually reduce the number of folks that we employ, but that is moving a lot of our chapters to better quality service. And then we're also working hard to reinforce the house director naming convention, and that means sunsetting that term house mom. I know that is a term some of us just automatically go to from our own experience, but we're really trying to shift towards that house director to confer some of that professionalism that those women really do have in display. And while there, I'll also mention we are working to prioritize the term server, and that would be in replacement of like cashier or dish dog or houseboy, all terms that have been used at some of our different chapters, but all of which have some connotations we prefer to avoid. And then our final anticipated trend and kind of priority area is to formalize the performance management process for our chapters. So really to get that feedback from not only the chapters, but also our partners in collegiate experience and housing to make certain that the folks we have working in these facilities really are performing to the best of their abilities and coaching and supporting where we may need to improve performance.
Great, thanks so much, Courtney.
Yeah, thank you.
So next we will move into questions. So Marcia, if you want to unmute yourself and let us know if any of those have come in so far. If you do have questions, feel free to type those in either in your question box or your chat box, and we will take a few minutes to run through those.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay, Madeline?
Yes, I can.
Great. Great. Well, so far we have had one question come in. It looks like it's from Darlene. And so it's a question for Taylor and company. And that is, what is the age range that you're looking for in chapter consultants?
That is a great question. So our chapter consultants, we hire our consultants typically right out of college. So after they graduate undergrad is typically the age that we're looking for. We've had consultants who have completed grad school or completed a year of grad school and have come into the consultant program. The goal is really not to look for a specific age, but what we want is that our consultants need to be close enough in age to relate to our current collegiate women and make sure that they, are still that age and they're still relatable to them. They're right out of college, so they're going to relate to them and gain their trust pretty quickly. So that is the reasoning behind that. So I would say recent college graduates is our main applicant.
Thanks, Taylor. I would also add it probably needs to be somebody who's willing to live out of a suitcase. And most people like me probably don't want to do that all the time. Let's see. I am not seeing any other questions. You guys better type those in fast if you've got them. Okay, Madeline, I'm not seeing any questions.
Well, if anything does come up, I will put up the next screen. Here is our foundation email address. You are always more than welcome to email us. You can email me directly, Marcia directly.
Oh, wait, here comes one.
Okay, perfect.
Here comes one. And I think Madeline, you'll have to help me because I'll be on the hook for it and I won't know all the answers. I do know them, but I forget them. Thankfully, I have a great team. So this was a question, and I can't see who it's from. My screen is acting up today. But it says, can we get a sneak peek of plans for Founders Day Challenge this year? And that's actually a great question because we won't be talking to you guys until after that. So it's a great time for us to give you that update. So one of the things that we talked about after last fiscal year was really coming to an end was, we have a lot going on, and particularly in a convention year, it's really easy for all of our initiatives to kind of blur into each other. And what we feel like is we've kind of adopted some of the online platform kind of concepts for Founders Day Challenge the last couple of years, which makes it feel a lot like Day of Giving. So wanted to kind of get back a little bit more, I would say just a little bit closer back to the way we used to do things with Founders Day Challenge. So we have changed a few things this year. The first is it is going to run the entire month of October. So gifts that come into the Real Strong Women Fund during the month of October will be counted toward Founders Day Challenge. That I think better accommodates our alumni chapter and some of our alumni who just choose not to do online giving. So whether that check comes in via the online giving platform or via a check or an electronic check, that's going to come and be recognized and counted. We do have a new online giving program, which we're really excited about. Ann Karash and I were playing with it today. So there will be a landing page that will show status in terms of number of donors. We have some donor participation goals that are really going to drive our what we feel is our success with Founders Day Challenge. We obviously always have a dollar goal because that's always important because we can't spend numbers of donors for the fraternity grant, but certainly those dollars will help with the fraternity grant. So you'll be able to see that. We'll have some just fun little challenges going related to the percent participation by individual members, collegiate and alumni of individual collegiate chapters, and that'll be based on percent of total members for those chapters. So small chapters have just as much just enough of a chance of winning as large chapters do. We'll also be doing some tracking by states. So that we won't really be able to do by percentages, but we will see, I'm sure, our friends from some of our more competitive states and parts of the country start to encourage their friends to donate. We will be featuring the Real Strong Women Fund this year. We will talk about a lot of the programs that the Real Strong Women Fund benefits, but we will be focusing the gifts during Founders Day Challenge for the Real Strong Women Fund. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Madeline, am I missing anything else on that?
I don't think so. I feel like you've covered the big pieces of it.
Yeah, Madeline and Ann Karash really partner very heavily on the planning for these giving initiatives, and because it's very integrated with the stewardship plan. So part of the goal with the Founders Day Challenge is that we will be having a lot of first-time donor follow-up in terms of personal phone calls and thank yous from our board of trustees and some of our other foundation volunteers, because all of the research says that the biggest attrition for donors is after the first donation. If you can get them to be engaged enough and feel good enough about their impact to get them to make a second gift, then you really have almost quadrupled the odds of retaining them as a long-term contributor and donor and supporter of your organization. So we really are trying to focus our attention on individual or first-time donors of all sizes, because it's not even the size of the gift that's as important in that case as it is just making them feel like they made a difference. So Madeline has really got the plans all in place for how do we make sure that all of our donors feel appreciated and thanked during this whole process for Founders Day Challenge. So it'll feel a little bit more old school. We're going to encourage people to do gifts at $18.85 or $188.50 or $1,885 or $188,500, whatever makes you happy. And so we'll keep that founding year in there, and we'll be reaching out to alumni chapters as well to encourage them to encourage their donors to give that $18.85 gift as well. Okay, let me delete that one so that I can see the next question if there is one. There's, for some reason, my little button is very squeezed at this time. Okay, looks like that was the only other question that was in there. Let me be sure nobody's chatted. Nope, no chats. Okay, Madeline, I think that's it.
Okay, perfect. If anything else comes up, feel free to send us an email. We will send out a recording of this presentation tomorrow, as well as a link to the slides. And I will be sure that you guys have working hyperlinks to the links that Mary Pat mentioned during her portion of the presentation. So with that, thanks for being here. Thanks for your attention as always, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.